This is Directive 17 and you are listening Nepal-ल Bank Unified Directives 2076 and today's topic is Deprived Sector Loan. This is a very small topic which will describe some of the sectorial lending of commercial banks and the financial institutions of Nepal. So here we are. The first point, A, B and C class banks should allocate minimum 5% of its total credit to deprived sector. That means if the bank is disbursing 1 crore credit in the total, then it has to disperse 5 lakh in a deprived sector. Then what does a deprived sector means? Deprived sector refers to the people with low level of income, people with socially backward, Dalit people, people with differently able, small farmers, they all are in the category of deprived sector. So, commercial bank has to disperse minimum of 5% to the deprived sector of its total credit. As I have already said, if the bank is disbursing 1 crore total credit in total, the bank has to disperse minimum of 5 lakh to these deprived sector. This is point number 1. The point number 2 is all about agricultural and energy and tourism sector. The existing provision requires commercial banks to disperse minimum 10% of their total credit to agricultural sector. That means if the commercial bank is disbursing 1 crore total credit, it has to disperse minimum of 10 lakh to the agricultural sector. Likewise, the minimum of 15% to the energy and tourism sector. That means if the commercial bank is disbursing 1 crore total credit, it has to disperse minimum of 15 lakh in energy and tourism sector. Therefore, a commercial bank has to disperse 5% in deprived sector, 10% in agricultural sector and 15% on energy and tourism sector. It makes the total of 30%. The B class bank has to disperse 5% on the deprived sector and 15% on the agricultural, tourism and energy sector. It will be the total of only 20%. Likewise, C class has to disperse 5% on deprived sector and 10% all total to the agricultural, energy and tourism sector, and it makes the total of 15%. Very clear, the commercial bank has to disperse 5% to the deprived sector, 10% to the agricultural sector and 15% to the energy and tourism sector of its total credit. That means if a commercial bank is lending 1 crore of total credit, it has to disperse minimum of 5 lakh in deprived sector, 10 lakh in agricultural sector and 15 lakh in energy and tourism sector, and this makes the 30% to these sectorial lending. But the B class bank has to disperse only 20%, 5% on the deprived sector and 15% altogether in agricultural and energy and tourism sector, whereas C class has to disperse only 15% of the total capital in the sectorial lending. That means 5% on the deprived sector and 10% in total to the agricultural and energy and tourism sector. That's it. But if the ratio is not maintained, the insufficient fund will be charged by the maximum interest on loan disbursed. What does this mean? This means, for suppose commercial bank is disbursing 1 crore rupees in total, and it has a obligation of 30% on the sectorial lending, 5% to the deprived sector, 10% to the agriculture sector, and 15% to the energy and tourism sector. That means it has an obligation of disbursing 30 lakh in the sectorial lending, but it is only disbursing 20 lakh. That means the insufficient fund will be 10 lakh, because it has to disperse 30 lakh, but it is only dispersing 20 lakh. That means the insufficient fund will be 10 lakh. And if the commercial bank is charging highest rate of interest on its total credit as a 15%, then the same commercial bank will be charged by NRB with that 15% to that insufficient fund. As I have said, insufficient fund, if it is 10 lakh, then NRB will charge that commercial bank with that 15% of 10 lakh. That will be the punishment given if the ratio is not maintained. This is how the deprived sector lending, agricultural and energy and tourism sector lending of banking and financial institution exists. This is all about Directive 17, which tells the deprived sector lending and the sectorial lending of commercial banks and the financial institution of Nepal.